Have you ever noticed how sometimes the person most likely to sabotage your dreams, ruin your peace, and eat the last cookie at 3 a.m. is you? That's right, your greatest enemy isn't out there marching with an army. No, it's in here, polishing weapons of self-destruction like it's preparing for World War Me. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the most dangerous arms race in history. Forget nuclear warheads, missiles, or tanks. The deadliest arsenal sits quietly inside our minds. And it's beautifully creative because unlike governments, we don't need trillions of dollars to manufacture destruction. No, we've got anxiety, guilt, shame, denial, all working overtime, producing weapons faster than a caffeinated factory worker. Now here's the thing, these weapons aren't designed for other people. No, they're forged in the hidden chambers of the psyche, pointed straight at ourselves. That little voice whispering, you're not enough. The hammer of perfectionism pounding away. The grenade of anger we swallow until it explodes in a spectacular fireworks display over something small like spilled milk or an uncharged iPhone. We are both the arms dealer in the battlefield. Why does this happen? Because deep inside there's a part of us we don't want to see, the darker impulses, the jealousies, the fears, the weaknesses. We shove them down, bury them under polite smiles and inspirational quotes. But here's the educational bit. What we bury doesn't disappear. It hides. And when it hides, it grows teeth. That's why the self-destructive pattern always feels like an ambush. One moment you're fine, the next, boom. You've sabotaged a relationship, destroyed your confidence, or eaten an entire cake in one sitting. The ego, oh dear ego, is both knight and trickster. It tells us, I'm here to protect you. But then it hands us a sword so sharp it cuts us every time we swing it. When we inflate it too much, we think we're invincible. When it deflates, we drown in insecurity. Either way, the ego is like a badly wired toaster, useful in theory, but capable of burning down the whole kitchen if you're not paying attention. But here's the miracle. The very weapons that destroy us can also transform us. The anger we fear can fuel justice. The sadness we avoid can deepen compassion. The fear we hide from can become courage in disguise. Healing doesn't come from smashing these parts, but from integrating them, saying, yes, I see you. You're part of me. But you don't run the show. That's how we disarm the bombs we've hidden in our own hearts. So the next time you find yourself on the verge of pulling the trigger on self-sabotage, pause. Ask, is this my shadow speaking? Is this the weapon I've built against myself? And then put it down. Because if you can redirect that energy, you'll find it's not destruction you're carrying. It's power, it's creativity, it's love. My friends, the war inside can end, but only when we realize the enemy isn't meant to be destroyed. It's meant to be understood. And when you do that, when you stop being your own arms dealer, you'll discover that the same mind that once built weapons can also build worlds. Have you ever noticed how the greatest wars aren't fought in deserts, jungles, or the high seas? No, my friends, the real battlefield is right between your ears. That's the place where the generals, the soldiers, and the innocent bystanders all look suspiciously like you. And let's be honest, it's a messy war. You're not fighting one enemy. You're fighting a whole army of your own voices. One says, go for it, you're amazing. Another says, sit down, you fool, you'll embarrass yourself. And somewhere in the back, there's always that weird one going, hey, let's just eat donuts until the pain goes away. That's the human condition, our inner battlefield, where courage and cowardice, wisdom and stupidity, love and fear are all duking it out like it's WrestleMania. Now, if you're thinking, Robin, that sounds exhausting, you're absolutely right. But here's the kicker. This battle doesn't start when you're an adult with taxes and a Netflix password. Oh no, this starts when you're a kid. Remember being a child? When you thought the world was magical, when a cardboard box was a spaceship and your dog was a fellow astronaut? And then slowly the voices crept in. Not the fun, imaginary ones, but the judgmental ones. The ones that said, don't be silly, don't cry, don't show too much, don't be too much. Bit by bit, we start to build an army inside ourselves. And instead of protecting us, they start pointing their weapons right at us. And what are those weapons? Doubt, shame, regret. Oh, the big three. They're like the unholy trinity of self-destruction. Doubt is like a sniper picking off every dream before it gets a chance to stand. Shame, that's like a landmine. You think the ground is safe, you're walking along fine, and suddenly, boom. You remember that embarrassing thing you did 5 years ago, and it takes your legs right out from under you. And regret is like chemical warfare. It seeps in, poisons everything, and no matter how many showers you take, you can't quite wash it off. We carry these things not because we want to, but because we don't know how to put them down. See, the strange thing about this inner war is that it feels so personal, so private, but everyone has it. Every human being is waging a conflict within themselves, even the ones who look calm, collected, and enlightened. In fact, sometimes the people who seem the most serene are the ones who've been through the ugliest battles and finally learned to make peace with their inner soldiers. That's the irony. You think you're alone in the trenches, but the truth is the entire human race is camped out there with you, trying to negotiate peace treaties with themselves. Now, let's get educational here, because while I love a laugh, I also know that humor is like sugar. It helps the medicine go down. Psychologically speaking, what we're dealing with here is a clash between different parts of the self. On one side, there's the persona, the mask we wear for the world, polished, smiling, Instagram filtered. On the other, there's the raw, unpolished, messy self that cries at commercials and secretly worries that everyone else has life figured out. When those two parts don't get along, we get conflict. We get weapons of self-destruction, because instead of integrating those voices, we let them fight. Instead of saying, yes, I can be both strong and vulnerable, we split them apart and make them enemies. And isn't that wild? Imagine if your left hand started a war with your right hand. You'd look ridiculous slapping yourself in public, and people would be like, that guy needs help. But that's exactly what we're doing inside. We pit part of ourselves against another part and then wonder why we feel so damn tired. The truth is the war inside is exhausting because it's unwinnable. You can't destroy part of yourself without losing something essential. But oh, how we try. We try to bury it, numb it, drink it away, laugh it off. And every time we do, the war just grows louder. But here's the hopeful part. This battlefield doesn't have to remain a war zone forever. Once you recognize that those voices aren't enemies but wounded soldiers, something shifts. The inner critic that shouts, "You're not enough." What if you saw it not as a cruel enemy, but as a scared child who's terrified of failure? The doubt that paralyzes you. What if it's just a cautious part of you trying to protect you from getting hurt? When you see these voices for what they are, you stop waging war and start listening. And listening is how the battlefield becomes a classroom. The funny thing is, sometimes the greatest lessons come from the parts of ourselves we hate the most. The voice of fear teaches us where courage is needed. The voice of shame points us toward the wounds that need healing. The voice of regret shows us where our values truly lie. Each one, if we stop treating it like an enemy, becomes a guide. And suddenly you realize the battlefield isn't about victory or defeat. It's about transformation. So yes, the inner war is real, and it's brutal at times. But the moment you understand that the only war worth winning is the war against your own self-destruction, you've already started to win. And isn't that the great cosmic joke? That the deadliest weapons we carry can also be the very tools that, when understood, disarmed, and redirected, help us build something beautiful. We don't need to keep firing at ourselves. We just need to call a ceasefire and start listening. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to a roommate you didn't know you had. They live rent-free in your head, eat all your snacks, and sabotage your life at the worst possible moments. Meet your shadow. No, not the Peter Pan kind that you try to sew back on with a needle and a smile. I'm talking about the darker side of yourself, the part you've been pretending doesn't exist since the moment someone told you. That's not nice, don't do that. And ever since, you've been stuffing all the naughty bits, the scary feelings, the wild impulses into a basement thinking, out of sight, out of mind. But let me tell you something. When you shove things in the basement long enough, they don't disappear. Oh no, they start lifting weights down there. They're doing push-ups, protein shakes, and waiting for the perfect moment to kick the door open and shout, "Your price!" Now, this shadow isn't evil. It's misunderstood. It's like that one weird uncle at family gatherings. You avoid him because he tells uncomfortable stories, but sometimes buried in the rambling, there's wisdom. The shadow is where we store the stuff we don't want to admit: jealousy, anger, greed, insecurity. We go, "No, not me, I'm a good person." And the shadow goes, "Cool, I'll just be here plotting your emotional downfall." Because here's the catch. Whatever we deny doesn't die. It waits. And the longer it waits, the stronger it gets. Think about it. Ever had one of those days when you completely lose it over something tiny? Someone cuts you off in traffic, and suddenly you're screaming Shakespearean insults at their bumper like, "Thou art a villainous, beef-witted knave." That's not about traffic. That's your shadow taking the wheel saying, "Remember me. You didn't deal with me, so now I'm driving." Or maybe you've met someone who annoys you instantly, even though they haven't done anything particularly offensive. That's often your shadow too, because the qualities we can't stand in others are usually the ones we refuse to see in ourselves. It's like holding up a mirror, except instead of seeing your face, you see all the things you wish weren't there. And you go, "No, that's not me, that's them." But deep down, your psyche is giggling, going, "Oh, yes, darling, that's you." That's the shadow at work. It's not trying to ruin your life. It's trying to get your attention. It's saying, please, for the love of sanity, acknowledge me before I sneak out during a dinner party and embarrass us both. Here's the educational truth: when we deny the shadow, it leaks out anyway. In addictions, in outbursts, in self-sabotage, you don't get rid of the shadow by pretending it's not there. That's like ignoring a skunk in your living room and hoping it'll politely leave. No, you have to face it gently, carefully, with compassion. Because buried in that darkness is not just destruction, it's power, real raw energy. The anger you deny could fuel your fight for justice. The envy you bury could show you what you truly desire. Even your selfishness, when integrated, could teach you healthy boundaries. But most of us are terrified to look, because we've been taught since childhood to only show the shiny parts, the socially acceptable mask. Smile for the camera! Be nice! Don't make a scene. So we hide the mess. And the mess doesn't go away, it just gets louder. Imagine locking a band of wild musicians in your basement. They're going to find a way to play. And when they do, it won't be Mozart. It'll be death metal at 3 a.m. That's what happens when you repress your shadow. But here's where the miracle comes in: when you finally turn toward it, when you sit down with your shadow like, all right, what do you want to tell me? It changes. Suddenly the monster under the bed is just a misunderstood creature who wanted to be seen. And when you see it, really see it, you reclaim the energy you've been wasting trying to keep it hidden. You stop being haunted and you start being whole. I'll give you an example. Think of comedians. Why do they often come from pain, struggle, darkness? Because they've made friends with their shadows. They take the messy parts, the shameful bits, the heartbreak, and instead of hiding it, they transform it into laughter, into art. That's the secret. The shadow, once faced, becomes creative fuel. It's the difference between destruction and creation. So the next time you feel that surge of jealousy, or that flash of rage, or that whisper of insecurity, don't shove it down. Pause, say, there you are. That's your shadow not trying to ruin you, but to remind you that you're more complex than the perfect little mask you show the world. And the more you accept it, the less it controls you. The less it needs to sabotage you to get your attention. The shadow isn't your enemy, it's your hidden teacher. And when you integrate it, you don't just stop self-destructing. You unlock a depth of humanity that is breathtaking. Because you realize that wholeness isn't about being perfect. It's about embracing the light and the dark, the angel and the trickster, the saint and the fool. That's when you stop fighting yourself and start living as your full, messy, magnificent self. The ego. Now there's a character. If the human psyche were a Broadway production, the ego would be the lead actor, the diva, the one demanding the spotlight, adjusting the lighting, and rewriting the script mid-performance. It's that voice that says, look at me, I've got it all under control. But here's the problem. The ego is like a Swiss Army knife. It's handy when used correctly, but if you're not careful, you'll end up stabbing yourself in the leg trying to open a bottle of wine. It's useful, it protects us, but boy, when it gets overinflated, it becomes the sharpest weapon of self-destruction we own. Think about it. The ego's job is to help us survive in the social jungle. It says, hey, don't walk naked into the office. People will talk. It gives us enough confidence to raise our hands in class, to go on that date, to tell the boss we deserve a raise. That's the healthy side. But then, when it gets carried away, the ego becomes like that one drunk uncle at a wedding, loud, overconfident, trying to dance to music that isn't even playing. Suddenly, it's not protecting us anymore. It's embarrassing us, cutting us off from reality, convincing us we're untouchable while quietly setting us up for a spectacular fall. You see, the ego is tricky. It tells us, I am you. I am the whole of you, and we believe it. We think the mask is the person. But in truth, the ego is just one part of the orchestra, not the whole symphony. When we mistake the trumpet for the entire band, all we get is blaring noise and no melody. That's what happens when the ego runs the show. It drowns out the softer, wiser voices inside us, the ones that whisper, slow down, reflect, listen, and without those voices, we lose balance. Now, here's where it gets educational. Psychologically, the ego is like the negotiator between our inner world and the outer world. It tries to balance our instincts, desires, and fears with society's rules and expectations. That's its noble function. But the double-edged part, when it leans too far into self-importance, it cuts us off from humility. When it collapses under pressure, it slices us open with insecurity. Either way, we bleed. Ever noticed how people overcompensate? The loudest bragger in the room, the one telling you how amazing they are, that's not strength. That's a fragile ego desperately propping itself up. On the flip side, the person who can't accept a compliment, who shrinks every time someone notices them. That's the ego deflating so much it suffocates the soul. The blade cuts both ways, too much ego, and you're blinded by arrogance. too little, and you're trapped in self-doubt. Balance is the key, but oh, do we humans love to teeter on extremes? The ego is like a badly trained guard dog. When balanced, it protects us, barks when there's danger, keeps us safe. But when untrained, it either bites everyone who walks by or hides under the couch while the burglars take the TV. Either way, you're not safe. And isn't it funny how often we let this clumsy guard dog run our lives, barking at shadows, snarling at imagined threats, and biting the very people trying to help us? That's the danger of letting the ego become too sharp, too uncontrolled. And yet, here's the beautiful paradox, not disrantoing the ego. You can't just say, "Be gone, ego," and expect to float around in pure enlightenment like some blissed out monk. No. The ego is necessary. Without it, we'd be like toddlers running around naked, painting on walls, demanding juice boxes from strangers. The ego keeps us functioning, but we have to hold it gently, train it, recognize that it's a tool, not the master. When you can do that, when you can laugh at your own ego and say, "Okay, I see you. Settle down." Then the double-edged sword becomes less of a weapon and more of a tool for growth. Here's where the humor comes in, because the ego has the best sense of drama. Ever tried meditating? The moment you sit down in silence, your ego shows up like a Broadway director. All right, here's the scene. You're amazing at this. No, wait, you're terrible at this. Actually, why are you even doing this? You should probably get up and make a sandwich. It cannot stand being quiet because quiet threatens its spotlight. And yet, when you practice quiet, when you observe the ego without letting it run wild, you begin to see it clearly. You realize you don't have to swing the sword every time. You can just put it down. The educational truth is this: growth comes not from killing the ego, but from befriending it, taming it, making it work for you rather than against you. Let it give you confidence, but don't let it blind you to your flaws. Let it help you survive, but don't let it convince you that survival is the same as thriving. The ego is a part of you, but it is not the whole you. When you understand that, you stop cutting yourself on its blade. So the next time you feel your ego puffing up, telling you you're the greatest gift to mankind, or deflating, whispering you're worthless, pause. Smile at it. Remember, it's just a sword, and you're the one holding it. Use it wisely, and it'll help you carve out a life of meaning. Use it recklessly, and you'll spend your days patching up wounds you gave yourself. That's the double edge of the ego, and the choice of how to wield it is always yours. You know what the real plot twist of life is? Healing doesn't come from hacking parts of yourself off like a bad haircut. No. Healing comes from integration. Taking all those messy, contradictory, embarrassing, sometimes downright weird parts of yourself and saying, "All right, gang. Family meeting, you're all invited. Nobody's getting left in the basement this time." And that, my friends, is when the magic happens. Because the parts you thought were trying to destroy you, when brought into the light, become the very parts that make you whole. See, most of us grow up thinking healing means perfection. Like one day we're going to wake up with glowing skin, inner peace, and a smile that looks suspiciously like it belongs in a toothpaste commercial. But healing isn't about being flawless. Healing is about wholeness, and wholeness is messy. It's the kind of messy where your inner child is coloring on the walls. Your ego is shouting about promotions, your shadow is sulking in the corner, and your higher self is trying desperately to lead a meditation. And you're just there, referee whistle in hand, saying, "Okay, let's try to play nicely." Oh, integration is about realizing that none of these parts are your enemy. The anger, the jealousy, the fear, they're not assassins trying to kill you. They're like unruly kids at summer camp. They just need supervision, attention, and a little love. If you ignore them, they set fire to the cabin. If you yell at them, they throw food at the walls. But if you listen to them, if you guide them, suddenly they surprise you with a painting, a song, or a skill you didn't know they had. That's the beauty of integration. You discover gifts hidden in the chaos. Now, let's get educational for a moment. Psychologically, when we split ourselves saying, "This part of me is good, this part of me is bad," we create conflict. The rejected parts don't vanish, they rebel. They show up as addictions, nightmares, self-sabotage. Integration is about reclaiming them, giving them a seat at the table and saying, "All right, I don't love everything you do, but you're still part of the family." When you do that, something incredible happens. The inner war begins to quiet down. Not because you've conquered anything, because you've listened, understood, and welcomed every voice. And here's where the humor comes in. Integration feels a lot like running a 24/7 talk show in your head. You've got the pessimist calling in, the optimist waving pom-poms, the critic scribbling nasty reviews, and the inner child asking for candy. And instead of shutting any of them down, you say, "Thank you for your contribution. Moving on." You become the host, not the hostage. And isn't that what we all want? To feel like the one steering the ship, instead of being tied to the mast while the crew stages a mutiny. The truth is, when we integrate, we stop wasting energy on suppression. Imagine holding a beach ball underwater. Exhausting, right? That's what we do with the parts of ourselves we reject. We hold them down, keep them hidden, pretend they're not there. But the moment you let go, the ball doesn't drown you. It just bobs up to the surface where you can see it, play with it, even laugh at it. That's what integration feels like. The relief of not fighting yourself anymore. And let me tell you, the relief is spectacular. Because suddenly, the energy you used to waste fighting yourself is available for creation. The anger you buried becomes fuel for justice. The sadness you ignored deepens into compassion. The fear you ran from transforms into courage. Integration turns weapons into tools, shadows into guides, wounds into wisdom. That's not just healing, that's alchemy. That's turning lead into gold. And the lead, my friends, is inside you. But here's the catch. It takes honesty. The kind where you look in the mirror and go, yep, that's me, all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly cry face. And instead of trying to Photoshop your soul, you embrace it. Because let's face it, perfection is boring. It's sterile. Wholeness, though, wholeness is alive. Wholeness is laughing through tears, dancing with your flaws, and realizing that the cracks are what let the light in. Think of it like a mosaic. If you only use perfect, shiny tiles, you get a pretty but boring pattern. But if you take the broken jag, mismatched pieces, and arrange them together, you get art. That's you. You're the mosaic. Integration is the art of arranging your broken pieces into something breathtaking. And the best part, nobody else can make that art but you. So the next time you feel yourself at war, fighting your jealousy, beating yourself up for fear, drowning in shame, pause. Ask yourself, what if this isn't an enemy? What if this is a teacher? What if this is energy waiting to be transformed? That's the shift. That's where healing begins. Because healing isn't about cutting away the darkness. It's about weaving it into the light. And when you do that, you realize you were never broken. You were just unfinished. Integration completes the picture, not by erasing the flaws, but by embracing them. And when you embrace them, oh, my friends, you discover that you were never fighting a war. You were building a masterpiece. Isn't it amazing how the same energy that can destroy us is also the very energy that can save us? It's like finding out the dragon breathing fire on your house can also roast marshmallows if you just ask nicely. That's the final twist, my friends. The weapons of self-destruction don't have to remain weapons. With a little awareness, a little compassion, a whole lot of humor, they can be transformed into the tools of self-creation. Think about anger. Oh, anger is a big one. Left unchecked, it's like strapping TNT to your relationships and lighting the fuse with a Bic lighter. Kaboom! Friendships gone, careers blown to bits, family dinners ending with someone storming out and taking the casserole. But when anger is acknowledged, when it's integrated instead of suppressed, it becomes fuel. That fiery energy can drive social change, protect the vulnerable, or push you to finally say, no, I deserve better. The same spark that burns bridges can light the way forward if you point it in the right direction. Or take fear. Fear is the sneakiest of the bunch. It's like a smoke alarm that goes off, not just when there's a fire, but when you make toast. It paralyzes us, keeps us locked in old patterns, whispering, don't risk it, don't try, don't step out of line. Left unexamined, fear is a prison. But here's the paradox. When you face it, when you walk toward it, instead of running away, fear transforms into courage. You realize courage isn't the absence of fear. It's fear harnessed. It's the horse that once bucked you off, now pulling your chariot forward. And then there's shame. Oh, shame. That heavyweight champion of self-destruction. It's the voice that says, you're not just wrong, you are wrong. It's corrosive. It seeps into the bones. It makes you want to hide. But even shame, when brought into the light, when spoken out loud, loses its power. The very thing that made you feel unworthy becomes the thing that connects you to others. Because here's the miracle. When you share your shame, someone else goes, oh my God, me too. And suddenly you're not alone anymore. Shame turns into empathy, and empathy turns into connection. That's creation born from the ashes of destruction. Now let's get a little nerdy educational here. Psychologically, this process is called transmutation. You don't get rid of the destructive energy, you repurpose it. Energy can't be destroyed, but it can be transformed. The destructive impulse becomes creative force. The inner critic that once told you, you're not good enough, can, when listened to with curiosity, push you to refine your craft, learn, and grow. The envy that eats at you can be a clue to your deepest desires, showing you the life you secretly want to build. Every destructive pattern, when flipped on its head, reveals a creative possibility. And here's where the humor comes in, because life loves irony. That heartbreak you thought would destroy you, suddenly you're writing poetry, painting, or singing songs that make other people cry and heal. That addiction you battled, once faced, you become the mentor, the guide, the person who helps others find freedom. That self-doubt that haunted you, it teaches you humility, and humility makes you a leader people actually trust. The things that almost broke you end up becoming your superpowers. Who writes this stuff? It's cosmic comedy at its finest. The truth is, we humans are alchemists by design. We take chaos and turn it into art. We take pain and turn it into growth. We take destruction and turn it into creation. It's wired into us, but only if we're willing to stop running from our mess and start working with it. Because let's be real, your mess is your masterpiece in disguise. But here's the key. Transformation doesn't happen by accident. You can't just say, all right, shadow, turn into a unicorn now. No, it takes awareness, courage, and patience. It takes pausing in the middle of a meltdown and asking, what is this really about? What's the lesson here? How can I use this energy instead of letting it use me? That's not easy, but it's possible. And the more you practice it, the more you realize that every time you stop a destructive spiral and redirect it into creation, you've won a battle in the greatest war of all, the war with yourself. And isn't that the ultimate freedom? To know that you're no longer at the mercy of your inner weapons. To realize that the same mind that sabotaged you can also save you. That the battlefield can become a playground. That the monster can become the muse. That, my friends, is the real revolution. Not conquering others, but transforming yourself. So the next time you feel that urge to self-destruct, to lash out, to give up, to tear yourself down, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what if this is not the end, but the beginning? What if this destruction is just the raw material for something new? And then take that energy, that wild, chaotic force, and build. Build a life, build art, build love. Build something that outlasts the war. Because the greatest joke of all is this: you were never broken weapons, you were always building blocks. And when you finally see that, when you choose creation over destruction, you don't just survive, you create a world worth living in. And so here we are, my friends, standing in the rubble and realizing the rubble isn't the end of the story. The weapons of self-destruction we've been carrying all along, anger, fear, shame, doubt, weren't forged to destroy us, but to teach us. They're not curses, they're invitations. Invitations to grow, to wake up, to take that explosive energy and use it to ignite something worth living for. Life will hand you chaos. Oh, it will, like a cosmic waiter who keeps bringing you dishes you didn't order. Excuse me, I asked for peace, not heartbreak. But every dish, even the bitter ones, has nutrients hidden inside. And when you learn to taste it all, when you learn to take the sour with the sweet, you find out that the very things you thought would break you are the things that make you whole. Here's the punchline, because there always is one: you are not your weapons. You are not your shadow. You are not your mistakes, your failures, or your fears. You are the awareness that holds them. You are the alchemist, the artist, the comedian in the great play of existence. And once you realize that, once you stop fighting yourself and start transforming yourself, you discover the freedom that no external power can take away. So laugh at your shadows. Dance with your fears. Hug your anger. Thank your shame. Because every one of them is just a teacher wearing a terrible disguise. And when you finally see through it, when you turn destruction into creation, you don't just survive, you shine. And maybe that's the greatest act of rebellion in this crazy, chaotic world, to take the weapons we've pointed at ourselves and turn them into instruments of love, of healing, of joy. To say, yes, I have walked through fire, but I've come out not as ash, but as light. So go on, be that light. The world's got enough bombs. It needs your brilliance.